They always said I'm wrong, but what they doing today? I think they want me gone, but I ain't going away. They told me I was wrong, but look at my ass today. Da 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 da.
Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim, he is KJ. This is the NFL Final Score, year 3 of doing the show on the Real Sports Talk Network. KJ, back for another year. You ready, man?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
Alright, so great day of NFL. Obviously, the first week there were a lot of 1 o'clock games, a lot less 4:15 games, so we'll go right into it. First game, Houston. The Houston Texans, a Super Bowl favorite by many, including myself. They defeat the Miami Dolphins 30-10. Matt Schaub and Andre Johnson have a great day. Arian Foster played pretty solid as well. And Ryan Tannehill disappointed. He just does not have enough targets there. Threw 3 interceptions today.
Yeah, he doesn't have much to work with. When you're playing on a team like that, you can't really expect much out of him. I mean, obviously, you want him to do better than what he did, but there's not much to work with. And then Andre Johnson had a big day, and I got him on fantasy football, so that helps me out a little bit. So
yeah, to have Andre Johnson, that was big today. And the fact that neither Arian Foster or Ben Tate had a huge game, that shows how dynamic this offense could be, and the defense really looked impressive, especially early on in this one.
Okay, we're going to go into the next game. The Jets beat the Bills 48-28. And see, that was a lot of things that I didn't think. That was one thing I didn't think was going to happen, was the Jets put up that many points, especially with all the questions throughout the preseason of, oh, Tebow this, Sanchez that. They can't score a touchdown until the 4th game in the preseason. And I was just really surprised. I was taken back that they blew out the Bills the way they did. Their defense played phenomenal. And even the backups played good once they were up by so much.
Yeah, Mark Sanchez was able to throw for 3 touchdowns, 266 yards. Ryan Fitzpatrick, late in the game, was able to kind of make the score at least reasonable.
Yeah.
But early on in that game, he looked pretty bad with the interceptions. Darrelle Revis had an early interception. Fred Jackson was lost to an early injury, something that seems to be a common theme with him. C.J. Spiller, the 7th pick in the first round out of Clemson a few years ago, who really has not gotten a chance to make a huge impact so far. 14 carries for 169 yards today. Extremely impressive game out of C.J. Spiller.
Yeah, he had a great game, and I was kind of surprised to see his stats so high, and then the score so low for them, because he had about over 150 yards, and then he only had 1 touchdown, and they only had like 14 points at the time, and I was just like, what's going on? This guy's tearing it up, and they're not scoring.
Yeah, and that was pretty much it, because if you had looked at his stats during this game, you would have thought the Bills were up big, considering, first off, he came into this game as the backup running back. You would have thought that they were up big. The game that everyone was dying to see this week, the Vikings and the Jags, actually was a very good game. The Vikings defeated the Jaguars 26-23 in overtime. Christian Ponder and Blaine Gabbert both looked pretty solid. 2 sophomore QBs who had a lot of questions coming into this season. But the Vikings in overtime get a Walsh field goal to win in overtime. The 2 running backs, Maurice Jones-Drew and Adrian Peterson, both had strange off seasons. Adrian Peterson not only got arrested, but he's also coming back from the ACL thing. And then Maurice Jones-Drew had the holdout. Both of them, they looked solid, nothing over the top impressive today.
I wouldn't say I was impressed with it, AP, in this game, but you definitely have to be happy as a Vikings fan if you see that he put up the yards he did. He didn't have too many carries. I mean, he was around 15, but he had 2 touchdowns, and he showed his power, and he didn't look like he was hampered by the ACL at all.
And you got to be pissed if you're me, and you still have to start Toby Gerhardt in fantasy, and he got about 3 carries in this game. So disappointing out of that, but it really was a good game.
All right, we're going to go into the next game. The Falcons put up 40 points against the Chiefs, who lose with only 24, so
Yeah, Matt Ryan looked extremely impressive today, especially early on. 300 yards, almost 299, I think it was. 3 touchdowns, 2 of which were caught by Julio Jones, who a lot of people are saying is going to be one of the breakout stars in the NFL this year. And Jamal Charles and Eric Berry, Jamal Charles right there, they looked pretty. I mean, I didn't get to see in depth a ton of Eric Berry because it's difficult to see every single game. We try to, but it's difficult to watch every moment of every game. Jamal Charles looked good. I mean, he didn't. It wasn't the greatest game of his career.
90 yards.
He looked pretty solid coming off an ACL injury, which is certainly something that I would expect with Jamal Charles, it's going to be more like a week 7, week 8 till he gets back to 100%.
Yeah, I'd agree, but my big thing in this game was Julio Jones. I was completely impressed with. He stole the spotlight, and he almost made himself look like the number 1 wide receiver over Roddy White. I was kind of impressed, and it kind of stinks that I had him last year in fantasy, but I wish I had him again, but he had a great game. I was impressed with
By
him.
the end of this video, you guys are going to know every single player we've ever had on our fantasy teams. The next game, Patriots 34 over the Titans 13, one of the least interesting games of the 1 o'clock games. Stephen Ridley had a very nice game, 125 yards. They let go of Ben Jarvis. Green Ellis, who's now with the Cincinnati Bengals. He had a pretty solid game today. You don't usually see a running back on the Patriots get that many carries. He did today. And then Tom Brady had probably not as good a game as he probably could have, but he had a solid game. And then Jake Locker played pretty well, but Chris Johnson, I mean, he had a terrible beginning of last season after his holdout, and then kind of came around middle, end of the season. You could kind of see him getting his legs back under him. Today, 11 carries for 4 yards, average 0.4 yards per carry. Is Chris Johnson done in your mind?
I don't understand how he is so respected by teams, but yet puts up no numbers until mid-season or late season when it doesn't really matter to Tennessee because they're almost out of playoff contention anyway. It baffles me that people think he's this great running back because he put up one good season. He was horrible last year until the end, and then putting up a 0.4 yard average. Are you serious?
Yeah, it's certainly been difficult with him. I mean, he had a few really good seasons. Then he obviously had the great 2,000-yard season, and since then he just has not had the same explosiveness. He has not been the same guy.
And another guy in this game who was very quiet was Wes Welker. I mean, Gronkowski did pretty good, but Wes Welker, only like 2 catches, minimal yards, didn't play very well. I didn't see anything out of him. It was weird.
Yeah, disappointing out of Wes Welker, no question.
And a game today that nobody thought that was going to be close, but it was until the very end with 10 seconds to go, was the Lions who beat the Rams 27-24, which was absolutely ridiculous. I didn't think anything like that would happen.
Yeah, it's a difficult game for us to watch because I picked the Lions in my suicide pool. I have Calvin Johnson on my fantasy team. He has Matt Stafford. Yeah. So certainly this was not one of the games that we were hoping, let's have this be a close game. We wanted a 40-0 blowout. We did not get it. I mean, I'm not surprised. Jeff Fisher has done a nice job turning this team around. I think Sam Bradford was kind of due to have a bounce back year. You got Steven Jackson there. Danny Amendola and Brandon Gibson both look good. They took the lead late. And then Matt Stafford, who, besides the interceptions, he put up pretty decent numbers today, but the interceptions killed them early on. Late in this game, though, much like another quarterback we're going to talk about, he had a lot of interceptions today, but late in this game, he was able to come back, lead a big game-winning drive, and I don't know if it's all was forgotten, but certainly better than if they had lost the game.
Yeah, at this end, with that 90-yard drive at the end of the game and winning the game, that really put a stamp on things. Showed Stafford can, even if he had a bad game, he had a lot of yards, but 3 picks. I mean, you can't have that happen all the time, but at least at the end he prevailed. And what a heartbreaker for St. Louis, though. I mean, that has to be that has to hurt so bad.
And Jeff Fisher, who obviously was the head coach in Tennessee, Jim Schwartz was the defensive coordinator, so to kind of lose to the student is a difficult pill to swallow. Bears 41, Colts 21, a game that is not getting talked about a lot, but the Bears looked great. This is a team that I had actually beating out the Lions, winning the wild card. The Bears today, Cutler, Forte, Brandon Marshall. I'm telling you, Brandon Marshall might be the best wide receiver in the NFL when he's working with Jay Cutler. He looked back to his Denver Broncos form. I think he'll have a few games this year where he's 15 to 20 catches again. He looked great. Andrew Luck didn't look awful, but he did have 3 interceptions, which killed him. He did have over 300 yards in the game. You can certainly see the talent with Andrew Luck, but and this is what I'm saying to people in the offseason. People are saying he's going to be the next Peyton Manning. Essentially, to me, that means he has to be the greatest quarterback of all time because Peyton Manning's right in that top 5. So if he's going to be anywhere near there, he's got to be one of the best quarterbacks that's ever lived. I don't even know if he's the best quarterback out of his draft class, let alone the best quarterback that's going to ever live. Let's give the guy some time, allow him to prove himself in the NFL before we crown him as the greatest quarterback of all time. But the Bears today look really nice.
Yeah, and the thing that helps color out is he finally has a good number 1 wide receiver. Yeah. He doesn't have to worry about his best wide receiver being like Devin Hester
or Matt Forte.
Yeah, people who who are supposed to be special teams players and really aren't that great of wide receivers, and that's why they're on the team. And Marshall blew it up. You said it before, and that's going to be the key to that team, having that number one wide receiver who's going to take that job, and nobody else is going to be able to compete for it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly this was a game where I think the Bears are going to be one of those teams that's going to be right in the mix throughout the next few seasons, or throughout this season, I should say.
And the game that was on Tim's mind all day would be the Eagles winning against the Browns 17-16, which they were lucky by the skin of their teeth they won that game.
I almost view this game as a loss. First off, DRC, baby, had two interceptions. Sure, that
Drop the third.
Clay Harbor gets that late touchdown to win. I'm about to go off, so first, let me hear what you thought more about this game.
Well, the fact that Vick threw 4 picks was very not veteran-like of him. I thought that he was forcing throws, maybe a little rusty because he didn't play that much in the preseason because of injury, and they were just trying to save him for the regular season, but obviously that's going to come with some rust. But 4 picks, you got to be smart on that, Vick. But LaShawn McCoy, it seemed every time he broke a 10-yard run, offensive holding on 71 or something like that.
Injured, but
whatever. That was just them just using the number. But honestly, the holding, the penalties, over 100 yards in penalties, they had to play smarter, the Eagles. That's what they need to do.
Philadelphia, I'm going to say this once. Nice. Nick Foles is a 3rd-round pick that was a rookie. He's not going to be the starting quarterback. Michael Vick is not Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, but Michael Vick is a really good quarterback who had a really not so good game today, who still threw for over 300 yards, is still a threat on the ground, and maybe if Andy Reid had ran the ball a little bit more, we wouldn't have had the problems. I mean, I'm so sick of everyone nationally getting on this team. I understood it with the Dream Team thing last year, but now it's like the Eagles have become the Cowboys nationally, where everyone just loves to hate on the Eagles because we're still talking about Michael Vick's dog thing 10 years later. I mean, seriously, people. What he did was awful, but let's move on at this point. And I don't know, Nick Foles is not going to be the starting quarterback of this team. I liked what I saw in preseason, but as KJ pointed out, it was preseason. No. Brandon Weeden looked like shit today, honestly. And Trent Richardson wasn't very effective, but we know he wasn't very healthy. We did see a few signs of it, yeah.
He has potential, and he showed it. But obviously, just coming off his knee surgeries and whatnot, you couldn't expect him to have a 150-yard game, 2 touchdowns, nothing like that. But he played pretty good.
Final game, I'm trying to calm down here. Redskins, I called this upset last night on our Facebook page, facebook.com/TheRealSportsTalk. 40-32, the Washington Redskins win. RG3 started off, I think, 10 of 11 with
fire.
2 touchdowns, including a deep one to Pierre Garçon, who had 100 receiving yards in the first quarter before leaving with an injury. They lit it up early. Alfred Morris played a very good role for them. I mean, I know everyone had him on their fantasy team. And the Saints today, I mean, there's not much to say.
They showed up too late.
They made a run late, but they were down by too much early on, and they allowed RG3 to be too successful early on to win this game.
Yeah, he was really firing on all cylinders and playing a real good game. So, I don't know. Pierre Garçon, that 88-yard touchdown pass, that was a turning point for that team in that game. They were winning already, but that really put a statement out there, and from there they just went on fire and kept scoring and playing great defense. So if that team can keep that up, they're going to be a real contender in that division.
Nick Foles is not going to be the starting quarterback. Please, we went through this 2 years ago with Kevin Kolb and Michael Vick. He's got a 6-year deal. Let's calm down here. It was one bad game. No. Bye.
Just a little bit around the corner from fear. Be there,